I remember one time, I really remember this because I wrote it down, but I was like, I feel like you understand me. I feel like you, when I'm thinking something, you know how to finish my thoughts. I feel like you totally get me. And he said, I think you're giving me more credit than I deserve. I don't know that I do all that. I welcome you, Amy, however you are, I welcome you. I hadn't said thank you yet. Thank you.
I heard her singing on the radio, and I think I was driving down on 8th Avenue, and I just pulled the car over and I said, that voice is so interesting. I never had met Amy, and I'd heard all these just wonderful, wonderful things. You know, anytime her name would come up in conversation. One of my best friends, Rick Bird, was the basketball coach at Belmont University. He would always tout his fondness for Amy and said, you'd really like her, and he was crazy about her, as everybody is. When you finally meet her, it's a given that, you know, people are taken when they meet her. She's got that kind of spirit about her that is real captivating.
A friend of mine, she had stopped off at the Green Hills Mall, and Hanes was having a special. You get 2 or 3 t-shirts and a free Vince Gill CD. And she stopped off and said, hey, I really just wanted the t-shirts. I'm gonna leave you this record. That was I Still Believe in You. I still believe in you. I put it in, and same thing, I was so compelled by his voice. And I mean, I had a little jam box, and I would move that from room to room. And then shortly after that, it was within that same year that I guess our managers were talking to each other and trying. I needed a guest for something local. He needed a guest for a TV show. And they were like, hey, let's just get them to play on each other's stuff. Vince was hosting this lovely TV show, Symphony Orchestra, and I just walked into the rehearsal space, and Vince came over and put his arm around and said, hey, unknit that brow, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. And I guess I was just trying to get a lay of the land. Yeah, and I remember saying, wow, thank you for saying that.
I just remember the smile. That's all I can remember. And truth be told, we invited Amy because it was a Christmas show, and we knew that she had a pretty big following in that world. We said we could use the ratings. We could use the help.
You just needed a chick singer.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. But it was a staggering smile that stopped me. You know, I'd never seen a smile quite like that. I was writing songs with my buddy of mine, Pete, and he said, what do you want to write about today? And I said, let's write a song about Amy Grant's smile. He said, do you even know her? I said, not very well, but she sure got a great smile. Whenever You Come Around, it's the song that came from just the innocence and beauty of that smile. You smile, that smile, the world turns upside down.
We were going to try to write a song for that project. And I said, well, kind of like, what else are you working on? He said, this is what Pete Wasner and I wrote the other day. And he played that song, and all I could think of was, God, lucky girl. I think I said, would you play that one more time? And now it's so weird, like the two of us just kind of dancing around, just the obvious energy that was immediate from the beginning. I look back on that month of 1993, that last month, and it was just like, it was not anything that we orchestrated. It was like life orchestrated, that we kept crossing paths. Whenever there's a divorce, nobody just rides off into the sunset. You know, Vince had a family, he and Janice and their daughter Jenny. I was married to Gary Chapman. We had 3 kids. And I think the energy was palpable to all of us. And we tried to be so respectful. I mean, life is full of all kinds of mysteries. And I'm not saying any of us did it all wrong or all right. What we've experienced is just so much grace and forgiveness for each other and for our first families and our second families.
What was painful was most people assumed the worst of us. And that was not fair, and it was incorrect. And you couldn't go back and undo what people said and what people thought and all that.
It makes me sweat thinking about those years.
Well,
Those were
of
some long
course
years.
it should. We didn't go try to convince people that were negative towards us that they shouldn't be, or vice versa, try to convince people that were positive towards us that they shouldn't be either. But to me, there was a real beauty in the most beautiful truth of that connection. I surmised that half the people don't really care and the other half only pretend to care. Because once there's another story, everybody goes barking up that tree, you know, and everybody kind of just slides on by and moves along. It's interesting now, 30 years later, but 25 years of us being married together, that words are kind. You know, they're not bitter and mean-spirited and hateful, and it's human nature, in a way, to assume the worst, you know, and think it was orchestrated and da-da-da-da. Couldn't have been further from the truth.
Vince kind of created a natural space around us that was not ever for public consumption. I mean, I think I'm the same person all the time, but I don't know that I had ever had such an open invitation just to show up, like however I was.
We don't work together that much. We do the Christmas shows together, a little recording here and there, but we also had enough of our life under our belts that we knew we didn't want to be all of a sudden Donnie and Marie or Sonny and Cher or whatever. You know, there was no point in that. You know, the worlds were very different and all that. So we just gave each other the grace to be what we've always been. She made a point one time. She says, when our heads butt when we work together, it's because we're both used to getting our way. And that was really profound. You know, when I'm working, I do whatever song I want, sing whatever song I want, in whatever key I want, in whatever set list I want. And she does the same thing, and we get together, and sometimes we kind of can not see eye to eye on how things should go. So you just, you know, once again, I'd rather be kind than be right. And I think she would too, because that's what she has going for her. It's a common kindness that I've never seen. She sees remarkably only the best in people. I could have a tendency to put the knife in somebody a little bit and twist it and speak my mind like that, but she won't do it. And it's been good for me to not hear somebody always just go along with what you might say and think or this or that. And it's been really helpful to me to be a kinder old soul. I went to see the cardiologist because I was winded going upstairs, which is no surprise. But I went to see the cardiologist and we went through all these tests. And Amy's with me and we sit down with all the paperwork and all this stuff. And he said, I can't believe I'm saying this, but your heart is fantastic. You're just fat and out of shape. And I said, well, no kidding, Doc. You're a genius. Then he turned to Amy, he said, I really want to see you. And she said, I feel great. He said, I'm sure you do, but your family has had a lot of history with heart issues, and I think it'd be wise to see you. And they found a abnormality from birth that he said would be catastrophic at some point. Even then, there were times where we could go to the hospital. I couldn't be there for the surgery, and that was tough. And, you know, it's just one thing after another, and, you know, it just was, every now and then it's your turn in the barrel, you know. And what was beautiful was after she had her heart surgery and I came in the room and I saw her, she was still out from the anesthesia, and I saw her, and it was just the most beautiful, peaceful thing on her face. I said, she's fine. And with everything that she had to face, she just did it with kindness and grace. And okay, we'll get through this one, then we'll get through that one, and she's pretty strong.
I did have a bike accident, and everything got really simplified for me. And some things have stayed simple. Our whole family, for various and sundry reasons, but that also was in therapy. And just going, how do I reprioritize and be here for my family? I never remember a time in life where it felt so important to see family, to hug family, to hear a voice. And I've always loved my kids, but I've always also worked so hard. And to me, that the gift of recovering 2 2 years ago, it's been kind of a slow recovery, is the chance that everything had to simplify. And I felt like, especially with my daughters, I was able to say to them, no matter how much I have loved you, work was always the priority because so many people depended on it. And now the invitation to know them as adults and to be known by them as adults makes me reprioritize my time. I totally get golden years. This time feels magical. One of our daughters has 2 young children, an almost 6-month-old and a 2.5-year-old, and it is like drinking out of a fire hose. They're exhausted all the time. And I'm like, yep, been there, done that. And to me, right now, life feels like the hard work, and you kind of alluded to this earlier, that there's the hard work that's kind of like really about like the statement you want to make, anybody, or the impact. And then to me, in the fourth quarter of most of our lives, we've got the most wisdom, hopefully our mind, still energy, even though retirement age in a lot of jobs is 65. And to me, I never even thought about what this chapter is when I was younger, but it's like, oh my gosh, this is a time where we can take all of our connectivity, the things we know, the relationships we've made, and we can actually affect incredible change in the communities in which we live, every one of us. He has a short list of things that he has committed his whole life to, and music is his first language, and he does love golf, and he loves sports, and I'm like, over there, hey, let's learn to hang glide, hey, let's try this, hey, let's try that, and I'm like, I'm gonna go back to those 4 things, and I'm gonna invest in those 4 things. And that's, you know, it's beautiful saying, you're the person I want to return to.